Hello everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to On Cashflow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. It's time for you to stop worrying about money. Okay, you're probably always going to have some worries about money, no matter how much money you have. I'm sure the richest person in the world has some kind of worries when it comes to money. There's something that bothers them. But there are some ways that we can reduce our worries. Here's a list of 10 ways for you to stop worrying so much about money. Some of these I have followed myself and some I am guilty of not following. The very first one I have for you is right there on the screen, and that is I think that you should keep a large cash buffer in your checking account. And there's a good reason for that, because it prevents worries from overdrafts and from missing credit card payments. So if you're like me and you have your main checking account and you have some credit cards, and those credit cards have the automatic statement balance that gets paid from them every single month on auto pay, you don't want to worry about, hey, you might have some unusually high spending one month and then your credit card is going to overdraft your checking account because you only kept $1,000 in your checking account. It's worth it, in my opinion, to leave some extra cash in that checking account, even if it's not earning interest. Maybe it's not in a high yield savings account. It's not optimized completely, but it's optimizing your state of mind because it's protecting you from that overdraft. It's protecting you from worrying about if you have enough in the account for the credit card bills to come out or anything like that. The way I do it is I keep about 2 to 3 months of my monthly spending in that checking account. So as long as I have about 2 to 3 months of average spending in that checking account, I'm going to be very good. I'm probably not going to have to worry about overdrafts or missing any credit card payments by accident. And I suggest you do the same. It's going to take a lot of worries and a lot of stress away. Next up, at number 2, one I have that also includes cash when it comes to your savings account. I think you should keep about 2 to 4 months of living expenses in a savings account. And the reason you want it to be in a savings account is because a savings account is just as liquid as a checking account pretty much. The way that this is going to reduce your worries is that it's going to minimize worries from unexpected larger expenses. A lot of people call this an emergency fund. So if you have a few months of cash in a savings account, then you're going to have that money ready to go in case some kind of unexpected expense comes up that might be a little bit on the larger side than what's normal within your monthly spending. And you'll notice here, with the amount of months that I suggest here, it puts you at about 4 to 6 months of liquid cash between your checking and savings account. So I said about 2 to 3 months in your checking and 2 to 4 months in your savings. So that puts you anywhere between 4 to 6 months of cash savings. And by dividing it up by some of it being in your savings account and some of it being in your checking account to have that buffer, I think that you are going to reduce your worries by having this much cash in your savings and your checking. Next up at number 3 is one that is very psychological that many people have a problem with, and that is just paying too much attention to their accounts, paying too much attention to the stock market, or paying too much attention to their investments, how they're doing, the volatility of them. And so in order to reduce your worries, I think that you need to delete the finance apps off of your phone and your computer screen, right? You shouldn't be seeing those daily fluctuations every single day. They can really mess with your mind. And in the long run, it doesn't really matter. If you're investing smartly in index funds and you're in it for the long run, then that day-to-day volatility doesn't really matter to you very much. And you shouldn't be looking at it every single day because it can really mess with your psyche. This reduces the worries of seeing volatility in your portfolio. So don't have the charts that show up right there on your screen. In fact, just delete the apps off of your phone. You don't need to be looking at them all the time. You're probably going to just habitually open them up and take a look at them. Yes, I still think that you should be monitoring your investments regularly. Right? So right here, I see you should monitor your investments, but you don't need to be doing it every single day. Step number 4 on this list goes very well with number 1, and that is putting all of your bills and your credit cards on auto pay. And you want it to come out all onto that one checking account, right? And that's why you want to have a buffer in that checking account so that you never have to worry about any kind of overdraft or missed payments. And the way that this helps you is that it clears your mind from worrying about different due dates, right? So you might have your water bill is due on the 6th, your electric bill is due on the 17th, your phone bill is due on the 21st, your whatever bill is due on different days of the month, right? It can kind of be a headache to kind of think of all that. And so what I like to do is I like to put all of my bills onto pretty much one credit card, usually the one I'm working on a bonus, but that's besides the point. So I put all of my bills onto one credit card, and then it makes it feel like only one bill is due every single month. The balance of that credit card, it builds up over the month, and then you'll see your statement balance. And that's really your one bill that's due that month. That statement balance should be what gets charged to your checking account, and then that's all you really have to worry about coming out of your checking account. Pretty much having everything come out auto pay, it reduces your worries because you don't have to manually do it. You don't have to worry about if you paid that bill on time because it's all set up for you. Next up at number 5 is one that I'm guilty of not doing. What you should probably do in order to reduce your financial worries is keep the amount of total open accounts to a minimum. So you really only need one of each account in many circumstances. For example, you only need one Roth IRA, one traditional IRA, you only need one checking account, and one savings account. If you have only one of each account, it's a lot easier to keep track of. And by having fewer amounts of accounts, it clears up that clutter in your mind about worrying about tracking so many accounts. And so what you really should do is take a look at all of your accounts. You can consolidate many of these accounts. You can just do a rollover between the accounts and just try to get your account down to only one. Close any unused credit cards, but be very careful about that, because if you have a really old credit card and you close it, it could negatively affect your credit score, because the age of your oldest account is very, very important. I don't like the system, but you do have to play by it sometimes. And so if you keep your accounts to a minimum, I think it's definitely going to reduce your financial worries. Next up at number 6, it really plays into number 5, and that is you should be tracking all of your financial accounts all in one place. And there's many different ways that you can do this. Now, I personally use the Empower Personal Dashboard. It was previously referred to as Personal Capital, and sometimes I still accidentally refer to it as that. But here's a little screenshot from it where I made a previous video where my wife and I's net worth just jumped over that $1 million mark. And so it was pretty cool. I took a screenshot of that. But this is what it would look like if you were using Empower. It has all of your accounts right here, your assets and your liabilities. So for me, my assets include the cash, my investment accounts, retirement accounts, and then my liabilities include any kind of outstanding balance on my credit card bill, includes my mortgages. In this case, it's with my investment properties. So Empower puts all of your accounts all in one place so you can see everything, all their current balances and things like that. The way I think this reduces your stress is I think that it minimizes worries about keeping track of your finances. It can be a lot to think about if you have all of your accounts in different places and you have to log into all the different accounts and check your balances and see if everything is okay. But instead, you can just log into one place, and it doesn't have to be Empower, but that's what I personally use and recommend. And if you have them all in one place, then it's much easier for you to keep track of them. And it doesn't take as much time. You don't have to log into every single thing. It shows you all the balances. It shows you everything that you need to know right there all in one place. So I definitely recommend that you get a financial aggregator and track all of your stuff in one place. It'll significantly reduce your financial worries. And here's another one, number 7, that'll significantly reduce your financial worries. And that is thinking of debt as not an option. Our society right now is pretty much built on debt. The federal government is in a ton of debt. The state governments are in a ton of debt. Everyday Americans, a lot of them have lots of debt. And that's what is pretty much, sparking a lot of economic growth, because people are able to spend money that they don't really have. And so, it stimulates that growth, maybe artificially, we'll see. But the point of number 7 on this list is to try to think of debt as not an option. What most people do when they think about a large purchase, everyday Americans that aren't considered financially savvy, is they look at, how much is it going to cost me in debt? Like, can I get a loan for this? So for example, when they're buying a car, they're like, well, how much can I get pre-approved for? Or when they're buying a house, they'll look at, what's the biggest amount that I can get pre-approved for a house that I'm buying? They might look at it and say, well, I'll put this on my credit card and I'll pay it off over time. These are all things that can contribute to financial worries, because the more debt that you have, the more financial obligations, I think the more worried you're going to be about being able to pay them, especially when they're not the kinds of debt that are going to actually be paying for themselves. For example, I think you can definitely categorize, a rental property that has monthly rent coming in that pays for that debt obligation. You categorize that much differently than you will, a car loan that you have for your personal vehicle. So those are definitely different worries that you have when you have different kinds of debt. But the point is, like I put right here, less debt equals less worries, period. Don't think about accumulating debt at all. Look at all of your problems as you should be able to pay cash for these problems. That's why it's important to save up for large expenses. If you look at debt and think of it as it's not really an option, then I think it's going to contribute to less financial worry. Number 8 on this list that I have for you is to make a solid plan and make your plan backed up by data. And what I mean by that is have a plan for your financial future. Have a plan for your retirement, for your early retirement, or whatever your financial goals are. And one way that I do this, one way that I build my financial plan is by using Bolden, because I'm involved greatly with financial independence and retirement and early retirement. I'm always running different projections when it comes to those. And I use Bolden for that. So formerly it was known as New Retirement. So if you've ever heard of New Retirement, it's the same thing. They just rebranded it. I use these in order to run all kinds of different scenarios. You can see right here, it tells you your retirement chance of success, and they use the Monte Carlo simulation. And so I think that's a really good way of projecting your future success rate. And you can see right here, it has all kinds of different things that you can input. You can input your, your assets, your home, your real estate, debts and income, and all that stuff. So it is very comprehensive for financial planning. And there are other great tools out there as well. But I think by just having a plan, it reduces your worries about the future, right? If you have nothing to look forward to, if you have no vision, if you have no plan, then you're going to be a lot more worried because you don't know if you're moving in the right direction. However, if you have a plan, or you have, several plans, because you can create different scenarios, for example, in Bolden, then I think you're going to feel a lot more secure about your future. Next up at number 9 is one that I kind of popularized in my own mind. Not that it's popular, but what I've always kind of strived to do and what I've always recommended is that if you can make your fixed expenses to be less than half of your total spending, I think you're going to have a lot less financial worries. What I mean by fixed expenses is probably not the traditional definition, because a lot of people might say, okay, a fixed expense is one that is just the same and recurring every single month, right? And that's one way to define it. But when I'm talking about fixed expense, I'm talking about one that's not easily changed, and usually what would be called required spending. For example, your electric bill is variable. It's not the same amount every single month. However, it's pretty much a required expense. You cannot really live without electricity, realistically. So you're going to have an electric bill. The same with a water bill. It's variable in nature. It's not the same amount every single month. However, it's a required expense. So that's what I mean when I say fixed expense. I mean more of a required expense, not optional. So an optional expense would be the opposite of a fixed expense for my definition. I think that by having less than half of your expenses be fixed expenses or required spending, I think that opens up a tremendous amount of flexibility and therefore will significantly reduce your worries. Because if you know that at least half of your spending is optional, then you know that you are able to reduce your spending and adapt to a situation that might not be ideal. And by knowing that in the back of your head, I think you're going to significantly reduce your financial worries. Last but certainly not least, probably one of the most important things is number 10, and that is you need to be on the path to financial independence. This is not something that is, a niche topic anymore. Financial independence used to be so niche. It's like because it used to be financial independence, retire early, and there was a very specific way that you followed that, and I did follow that. Back in the day, I followed that extreme amount of savings. Save 60 to 75% of my income and invest it all into index funds, and then retire as soon as possible. So I followed that, but that's not exactly what financial independence is about. The narrative on it has definitely changed. In reality, every single person should be seeking to become financially independent, because what it means to be financially independent is to be able to support yourself and support your family without having to be forced into working a career that you don't want to work, or forced to working in a job environment that you don't want to work, or that's not actually best for your family, but you're forced to do it because you have no other options. Financial independence is about having options, and financial independence can significantly decrease your money worries. Everyone should be seeking financial independence. It doesn't mean they have to retire early, but it is something that everyone should be working for because it does a great job at reducing your financial worries. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you hit the like button on this video because it really does help me out and I really do appreciate that. And if you want to check out some of the resources that I recommended in this video, I am an affiliate of those because I personally use them myself and I've reached out to them and I've partnered with them. So if you want to check them out, I would really appreciate it if you did just through my link oncashflow.com/resources. So that's my page where I list all of my recommendations. And these are all things that I personally use myself. So if you actually go on there and you click through there and you check out the software and you use it for yourself, I could be compensated for that. And I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from oncashflow.com and I hope to see you next time.